What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler and today I'm counting down the top 10 chunky shoes of 2019. And not only are we counting down some pretty cool chunky sneakers, but I've also partnered up with YouTuber Untied Hawaii to give away a pair of Travis Scott Air Jordan 1s. And that's not a joke, make sure to stay tuned till later in the video to find out how you can win. Over the last year or so, chunky and bulky sneakers have become increasingly popular. In fact, this sort of dad shoe trend of sneakers, as some people call it, has become one of the most popular trends in footwear. So I wanted to create a list of the top 10 chunky sneakers available in 2019. This list covers a couple different brands, and I tried to include shoes that are readily available, have released recently, or will release again in the near future. I also didn't put this list in any particular order. I just kind of wrote them all down to try and make them flow with the video. I picked the shoes on the list with both men and women in mind, and a lot of shoes were picked because of the overall chunk of the sneaker. But with that said, let's jump right into the list. Number 10, the Reebok Instapump Fury. Coming straight out of 1994, the Reebok Instapump Fury is back with a vengeance. The sneaker features its classic pump technology, which I'm sure is nostalgic for a lot of you guys watching. I was born in 92, so I was 2 years old when this sneaker first came out, so I never had a pair, but it does definitely exemplify that 90s look and feel. The Reebok Instapump Fury comes in a wide array of different colorways. Whether you're looking for the crazy yellow and red OG colorway, or you want something more toned down like an all-white colorway, they've got you covered. And even if you go for one of the less crazy colorways, the sneaker silhouette is crazy enough on its own. The upper is made up of some very unique paneling, which is definitely 90s inspired, and of course you can't forget the pump technology, which even now is still pretty interesting. Even though this sneaker came out 25 years ago, which is totally crazy to think about, the Reebok Instapump Fury is definitely designed for the more fashion-forward wearers out there. And even though it's a kind of crazy and out there look, it still definitely holds up in 2019. If you're trying to pick up a pair of the Reebok Instapump Furies, their price point is more on the mid-range side at around 180 bucks. Number 9, the Puma RSX. Last year, Puma debuted the bulky RSX, and it quickly became one of their most popular models. The shoe features a very chunky midsole design and a full textile upper, and you can pretty much get it in any colorway that you'd want. A lot of the colorways of the shoe are very heavily themed. I believe there's a Motorola collab, and there's a Transformer collab, and the list goes on and on. So if you're into themed sneakers, this is a good way to go. It's also a pretty comfortable sneaker as well, featuring a very padded collar area and the running system cushioning. As with a lot of shoes on the list, the upper is very heavily paneled, which allows for a lot of different color variation, even if it's very subtle. The midsole shape is also very interestingly sculpted. You've got a lot of very unique looking lines and even some pod shapes coming off the side of the shoe. And one of the best things about the Puma RSX is actually its price point. It comes in at a very reasonable 120 bucks. Number 8, the Balenciaga Triple S. The Balenciaga Triple S, as the Balenciaga brand name would suggest, is by far the most expensive shoe on this list at $950. I don't know if you're balling like that, I'm definitely not, but if a brand name is important to you and you have money like that, you might want to pick it up. The idea behind the Balenciaga Triple S is that it's actually 3 different sneakers mashed into one. And that concept becomes very apparent when you look at the midsole, because you can actually see 3 different midsoles stacked on top of each other. That's probably why the sneaker is so unbelievably heavy. If you've never picked up a pair, you're definitely in for a shock. Another feature of the Balenciaga Triple S is its artificial wear out of the box. They actually go over each shoe in the factory with a dye sponge or paint sponge to give the shoe a pre-worn look. I guess it's kind of like distressed jeans, so in that sense I get it, but for me personally, I prefer wearing in my shoes rather than having someone else make them look like they're dirty. The Balenciaga Triple S comes in a couple different very bold colorways, and if that's your thing and you have the money for it, I say go for it. Number 7, the Adidas Young One. The Young One is a pretty new silhouette from Adidas, and it features that sort of bulky, oversized look without feeling too bulky or too out there. It's a 90s inspired runner that relies more on its laid back aesthetic than using crazy colors to make the shoe stand out. Even though the Young One is one of the cheaper shoes on this list at 120 bucks, it uses some surprisingly premium materials on the upper. I mean, they're not incredible, but for the price, you do get a pretty good value. If you like your shoes to stand out, you can find Young Ones in brighter colors. However, most of the colorways do come in more muted whites and grays. The Adidas Young One is a good-looking, subtle, everyday shoe that feels great on foot. Number 6, the Fila Disruptor 2. The Fila Disruptor 2 is taking the Instagram and social media world by force. I would personally say that this sneaker is primarily a women's silhouette, but that doesn't mean that guys can't rock it, and it also comes in men's sizing. At $65, the Fila Disruptor 2 is probably the cheapest sneaker on this list. And because of that, it's actually sometimes hard to find in stores. When I did my review review for this shoe, it was sold out pretty much everywhere. The most popular colorway of the shoe comes in all white with the Fila branding on the midfoot and on the tongue. One of the standout features of the shoe is the serrated trail-inspired outsole. It definitely gives the shoe a unique look. It also has a pretty thick midsole, so if you're trying to gain a couple inches, this isn't a bad way to go. The Fila Disruptor 2 is a surprisingly comfortable and clean-looking shoe, and it's one of those shoes that what you see is what you get. Number 5, the Air Jordan 4. Honestly, any bulkier Air Jordan model could be on this list. I just put the 4s because we had a couple 4s released recently, and it should be easier to find in stores than some of the other models. The Air Jordan 4 is one of the most classic looks that Jordan brand has ever created. Not only is the silhouette cemented in history because of how Michael Jordan played in it, but it's also a really good-looking shoe. The Jordan 4s are probably one of the more sneakerhead-friendly shoes on this list, so if you're trying to grab a pair for your boyfriend, or it's your first pair of dope sneakers, the Air Jordan 4 is a great way to go. Honestly, out of the hundreds of Jordan 4 colorways that have dropped, there aren't too many bad colorways, so you can't really go wrong with it. It might not be one of the more comfortable shoes on the list, and yes, it is one of the more expensive ones at $190, but if you want that timeless signature look, or you just love Jordan brand, this is a must-have. Number 4, the Adidas Yeezy Boost 700. The Yeezy 700 is one of the more hyped up and more popular sneakers on this list, of course because it's tied to the name of Kanye West. What do you think? You're not enjoying this, are you? I'm sorry, bud. This sneaker first released as a pre-order in 2017 and has quickly become one of the most popular Yeezy models ever made. The Yeezy 700 isn't a cheap shoe because it retails for $300, and it's also not one of the easiest shoes to find because it usually sells out. However, if you do decide to shell out the $300 plus tax, you'll find that the sneaker is very comfortable because of the almost full-length Boost midsole and the very well padded upper. Of course, it's worth mentioning that the design of the sneaker is pretty unique as well. The upper of the shoe features some pretty nice organic paneling, and the midsole of the sneaker has a very nice sculpted look. There are a few different color options available, however they are all pretty much sold out, so you have to buy them at resale and prices can definitely vary. But if you love the way this sneaker looks, you're a sneaker collector, or you're just a fan of the hype, the Yeezy Boost 700 is not a bad way to go. Number 3, the Air Max 97. Like the Jordan 4 that I mentioned earlier, the Air Max 97 is pretty interchangeable and you could get away with wearing pretty much any other Air Max available. The Air Max 97 is just one of my personal favorites, and there have been a lot of different colorways released recently, so it is easier to find in stores. The Air Max 97 is one of those classic sneakers that you don't really notice that everyone is wearing until you start looking for them, and then you see them everywhere. The shoe features sort of a wave pattern on the upper, which some people love and some people hate. I think it's awesome looking. And like a lot of other classic sneakers that released back in the 80s and 90s, you can find this shoe in pretty much any colorway you could ever want. The 97s also have a pretty interesting design because even though they're decades old, they still look like they could be modern today. The Air Max 97s are relatively comfortable, and they are a great everyday shoe because, like I said, you can find them in pretty much any style you could ever want. The Nike Air Max 97s definitely aren't the cheapest shoes on the list at $170, but because there are so many colorways available, and there have been for years, you can find a lot of pairs on sale. Recently, the 97s have spiked in popularity because they've been used as a base for a couple different notable collaborations. You've got the Off-Whites, you've got the On Air series, but yes, they are sold out, and yes, they are expensive. Number 2, the Puma Thunder Spectra. In my opinion, this is the shoe that really put Puma back on the map when it comes to hype sneakers. I honestly consider the shoe to be one of the best releases from last year, and by far my favorite Puma shoe ever released. Even though the Thunder Spectra features a pretty unique multicolor upper, it's done so well that it doesn't ever seem out of place or too crazy. Not only that, but for $120, and in a lot of cases under that because they're on sale, this shoe has some of the nicest materials you can find. But my favorite part of the Puma Thunder Spectra is the overall shape of the silhouette. It still has that chunky, bulky aesthetic that everyone seems to want right now without actually being bulky or chunky. It's a surprisingly sleek shoe and feels incredible on foot. For me, this is one of the most worn shoes in my collection. It just looks so good and it's very comfortable. The Puma Thunder also comes in a couple different colorways, and yes, I still like the silhouette, but in my opinion, the Spectra colorway is just so much better than all the other colorways, it deserved to be in its own place on the list. Number 1, the Nike M2K Techno. The Nike M2K Techno is the reinvention and revitalization of the Nike Air Monarch, one of the most popular shoes on the market. No, the Monarch isn't one of the most popular shoes because it looks good or because it's hyped. It's because it's inexpensive and it's comfortable. You can pretty much go to any cookout and see a dad wearing a pair of Air Monarchs. They are the quintessential dad shoe. And Nike definitely realized this. And they also realized that the dad shoe or chunky shoe trend is definitely coming back. So they took the Monarch and redesigned it as the M2K Techno. Now to be fair, the M2K Techno is almost double the price of the Monarch at $110, but let's be honest, it's a better looking shoe. The M2K Techno features a nicely paneled upper and comes in a lot of different colorways. In fact, there have even been some pretty hyped up collaborations on this shoe. The M2K Techno still features that same chunky aesthetic and that same comfort of the Monarch without a lot of the bulk and without a lot of the stigma. If your goal is to have a fashionable version of the ultimate dad shoe, the M2K Techno has you covered. Now on to how you can win one of the most hyped up releases of 2019, the Air Jordan 1 Travis Scott's. Entry into the giveaway is really simple and the instructions and links are all in the description below. The steps to enter are as follows. Subscribe to Untied Hawaii on YouTube, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow Untied Hawaii and myself on Instagram, and follow both of us on Twitter as well. And then comment where you're from and done in the comment section down below. The giveaway runs from May 24th to June 1st, and the winner will be selected on June 1st and contacted via direct message. But that's all there is to it. If you want to look at the instructions or check out any of the links necessary to enter, they're all linked in the description below. But that pretty much wraps up everything for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.